Yes, the Flying Eagles keep flying in Argentina, and we hope that they would give us something to celebrate, especially as we build up to a new phase in our government and also other parastatals at this point. But today we are focusing on how well we fare in sports in the last 4 years. Remember, I told you earlier that the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Sunday Dare, would be joining us shortly on the show. We have Tolu Bani in the studio as well as the regular. Tolu, it feels good having you on Sportsville this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Matthew. So it's so short, just to think that so soon, the administration of Muhammad Buhari, has come to its end. And at the same time, that of the sports minister Sunday, that has equally come to a stop. And of course, we look with so much enthusiasm, knowing what will befall sports, whether there will be a new head or then sports is going to go back to a political, appointment.
Yes, and George?
Nice to be here. Talk about what happened within the week. I want to say special congratulations to the big sheikh himself and our own Dr. Larry Zamuje.
Absolutely.
They were honored with fellowship of the National Institute of Sports during the 8th convocation. That was a fantastic one, and I say congratulations to those two gentlemen.
Yes, from that congratulatory note, we have Frankie Laboya.
Well, everybody has been waiting for this day. I mean, of course, tomorrow, 29th of May, the administration of Buhari will have come to end. And everybody talking about Dare, and that is what we are talking to today, Sunday Dare. Let us see how well is fair for the past 4 years.
Yes, it's all about how well Nigeria, how well we are fair in sports development in the last 4 years, and no other individual than the man himself saddled with the responsibility to guide fast sports to greater heights himself. We have live from Abuja on the show at this point, the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports, Sunday Dare. A pleasure having you on Sportsville this afternoon, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Sportsville, and good afternoon.
Yes, so much has been said about how we've been able to achieve in the last 4 years under your leadership. At this time, let's look at those very significant times in retrospect. What will you say are the high points of your achievements?
Thank you so much. That's a loaded question. But let me start by saying that when we took over, we settled down very quickly and we identified 3 or 4 areas we needed to do some work. Don't forget, this ministry has 2 clear mandates, youth and sports. And we were focused that we will put both youth and sports on equal keel. Now, for sports, we identified 3 areas. Athletes' welfare. We decided athletes' welfare will engage us. It was critical. We're in this sports business because of the athletes. So their welfare was priority. Second was changing the orientation around sports. Sports for decades was just recreation. Funding was not coming from the private sector. No investments. Over-dependence on funding from government, which was inadequate and sometimes comes too late. So we said we will change the orientation and get sports reclassified from recreation to business, which we achieved with the sports industry policy November last year. And thirdly, grassroots sports development. There's no sports development without grassroots. A return to grassroots sports development, youth development all around sports. And those were the 3 areas we focused on. What have we achieved in the last 3 years? We've seen the sports industry policy delivered. Sports as business. Sports is not business in Nigeria. That document has been approved by FEC. As I speak, the incentives needed to attract the private sector in funding, the technical committee has submitted those incentives. Just a final announcement will be needed. When it comes to athletes' welfare, you see what we have done through the Adopt an Athlete. Very first time we were able to pitch our athletes and get $10,000 for home-based, $20,000 foreign-based. That took care of athletes' welfare, at least to some extent. But also in the sports industry policy, we have the Independent Athletes Welfare Fund to be seeded with funding to take off by the federal government. That was also approved in November last year under the sports industry policy. But for me, I think the greatest impact we have made is to change the orientation around sports, to move sports from a low-tier ministry to a higher tier ministry, to get the focus that we need. And for the first time, sports had a seat at the business table of government when the National Development Plan was taking place. That's why last year, the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, for the first time, sports got a seat at the table. And an allocation of 80 billion naira is now secured in the National Development Plan between now and 2025 for sports. It's never happened. When you look at it, what we have done is set up sustainable models that anybody can plug in. It's changed the orientation around sports, but also put Nigeria on the global map, because Commonwealth, what we did in Commonwealth is phenomenal. What we did in Nairobi is phenomenal. In Dola. Then what about the icing, the final icing? Look at Toby Amusa. We gave this country the first world champion ever. You see, when people forget, people want to just look at the failures. I don't see those as failures. I see them as challenges. In life, any not just sports, anything you engage in, even as an individual, you have challenges. So if you see your challenges as problems, then you are stuck. But if you see them as challenges to be overcome, then you can overcome. I believe that we have set processes in motion. We've set clear markers. We put policies and projects on the table that will help us eventually overcome the challenges that we are facing.
Interesting. Honorable Minister, is going to be an interactive session, as all of us here in the studio have specific questions for you. George?
All right, Honorable Minister, we say congratulations. It's not easy being in charge in the last 4 years, and we've seen your achievements. You read them out. But let's ask you this, HM, sir. Are there areas and instances you thought you should have acted differently? If you have to reflect back on what has happened in the last 4 years, are there areas you felt you should have acted in a different way?
Are there things we'll have done differently? Yes, yes. Perhaps we will have engaged the federations earlier on to let them understand that the Ministry of Youth and Sports has statutory constitutional right to set direction for the general policy of sports. Because we came on meeting crises in one or two federations, crises that are inherited, and we tried to engage, but that engagement never worked. Now, government does the funding. They draw their legitimacy from the federal government. They sing under our national anthem. They wear the Nigerian national anthem. But then the government, the ministry is reported to the international federations as a third party that were interfering. Now, if there's acrimony on the board, it affects the sport. It affects the athletes. The athletes are saying, ministry, government, help us. Board members are saying, help us. Nigerians are saying, help us. I want to sit down and keep quiet. So some tough decisions had to be made. In governance, you will have to take a decision. For 2 years, the AFN thing went on and on, until finally World Athletics sent a team to look at what is happening and then took a decision. And the decision they took eventually vindicated the Ministry of Youth and Sports and government, because we insisted there's a process. Basketball, we tried everything we could do. There was a federal government committee. The people there were unwilling. Our basketball youth program was suffering, a court case in court. Players said they will not play, that they will protest if they get to the place. Both male and female players will not play. The government was being trashed in public. Basically, we got to a point in which everybody became the enemy of government. The players, stakeholders, the MBBF, we did everything possible. So Nigeria was at a point in which either the players will not show up for an international tournament, or when they show up, they will carry placards, etc. So we said we needed to take it. And we did an evaluation, presented it. And that's why we went out to say we're going to withdraw for 2 years and see what can be done. Eventually, the MBBF came back. They wrote a letter. They agreed with our proposal. They said they will abide by it. And when we met with Mr. President, we presented new facts and evidence. And the President said, fine, now that they agree with what we wanted to do, change your constitution, reconcile the groups, etc., we can go back. I have a role to protect the institution of sports development in Nigeria, but also I have a role to put the national interest above personal or individual interest. So as it is, yes, perhaps a few things will have been done differently. As it is, we didn't achieve all that we set out to achieve, but as it is, we can say we shook the table, we made efforts, we moved the needle, and we changed the fundamentals of sports development in our country.
Yes, it's been an interesting one with the Minister of Sports. More questions still to come, but first, let's go on a quick break, and when we return, more of our colleagues definitely would still have one or two to ask the Minister on sports in Nigeria in the last 4 years.
Start strong, Finish strong. Nescafe.
Yes, you're welcome back. It's a special Sportsville edition, and we've had live with us the Honorable Minister of Sports, Sunday Dare, looking at sports in Nigeria in the last 4 years. Tony Bani is in the studio, as well as George Alu and Frankie Laboya. It's been all about Nigerian sports and how it can get better, Tony.
Yeah, Matthew, I just want to ask the minister. We have seen him, just doing almost everything, and he has already been scoring himself so high. I think that in sports, our worry has always been, when he leaves office. And then I ask, how can these achievements of yours be sustained, beyond their time in office?
Thank you, Sportsville. I think that's an important question. And that's a question I get very often, because the bane of our sports development and even good governance has been lack of a sustainable model. And when you look at sustainable models, they are backed by either policies or initiatives and plans that are well laid out. And I'll give you two examples. We have set up sustainable model. The sports industry policy helps to knock together the next steps we want to take. Taking sports away from recreation to business is massive. Having the incentives for the private sector is massive. An injection of almost 60% of resources you need for sports development coming from the private sector is massive. Like I say, now we know that basketball is business, football is business, tennis is business. Now, but also you look at the football master plan, because football is king, is the king of all sports. The master plan, if implemented in the stages, short term, medium term, long term, you will see what's going to happen to our football. And we'll have 10 years to do that implementation to get us to where we want to. So you can see that in a deliberate way, we have put together 2 major or 3 major documents that will serve as sustainable document go forward. The sports industry policy, the 10-year football master plan, even the Independent Athletes Welfare Fund will create a pool of funds as grants for our athletes, which was never there before.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sports Minister. We know that you have a few hours to go, but let's find out, is there any way that sports ministry can stand alone, without merging with maybe a youth, National Youth Service Corps? Because if you look at the budget of the ministry, most other parastatals that are joined, like the youths and the LYC, they seem to chop up the money. Do you think that sports can stand alone so that at least you have pool of funds that you can use for all those areas that you needed to be developed?
You just touched on a point that is very sensitive, because when I became minister and I looked at budget profile of all ministries, the 3 least ministries with the lowest budget, the sports ministry was there. Because there's a separation. Let me explain this quickly. The money in the budget for sports development is not enough. So what we've had is we get intervention funds. Intervention funds is not sports development fund competitions. You're going to Commonwealth in 6 months' time, you collect money from government. You're going to Olympics in 1 year's time, you collect money from government. Now, what happens between the intervening years? You prepare for 4 years. Because the money you're getting at that point is to buy tickets, pay for hotel, and pay for allowances. What about the development of the skills, the training of the athletes? And that's where the gap has been. It is clear that government cannot fully fund sports. In other countries, government does not fund sports 100%. But like I've said in my notes, the budget for sports, because we've been operating under an envelope, the budgets for sports must be increased by a quantum of an additional 60% of what is getting now, or even 100%. We cannot say Egypt is getting more laurels, Ethiopia. You go and check what their sports budget and investment is. Compare with our own sports budget and investment. And then you understand why there's a gap in the sporting achievements that we make.
An interesting conversation is being with the Minister of Sports, Sunday Dare, is still live with us on today's special Sportsville package. But Tony, you've had a minister before we sign out with him. What do you make, away from all he has said, what does Tony Bani make of sports in Nigeria in the last 4 years?
Yeah, I think I'll give him a pass mark, because before he came in, I knew what we went through. And then when he came in, at least FIFA equally confirmed the this, that we had gotten somebody who is cerebral. You know, you can see, you just confirm that, Sunday Dare is sweet talking once it comes. And of course, he talks with facts. He knows it. He grapples a lot of things on his listing. But then I think that I will give him a full mark because of adopt an athlete, that he brought. And then the welfare, because I think welfare has always been the highest law once it comes to sports. And I think for the time that he was minister, that our athletes never complained, or anybody, just trying to shortchange them once it comes to welfareism.
And Frank?
Well, I think I want to go with Tony. Whether you like it or not, I think Sonny Dare has done well. Let's look at it. Like Tony said, you could see the way he's talking now with a lot of facts. I think that Adopt an Athlete initiative to me was just, spot on.
A game changer.
Yeah, game changer. And because you can't do sports without welfare. And that is where I think he has also excelled. And like I said now, 3 to 4 years, he has won so many medals. How do you judge somebody? It's not by result, I think Sonny Dare has done well. And like he also admitted, there are areas that he thought could have done better, especially the area of basketball, where the country was almost thrown into turmoil. But he also realized that he would have done better in that area. But on the whole, I want to see that somebody that has done well. His response rates to issues to me is wonderful. It's not a minister that will sit down and say, oh, let us see what's going to happen. I remember when the floodlight at the Surulere Stadium collapsed, in the next second he was there. That is to show that at least he's on top of the situation. We must give it to him. I must tell you, he has done his best. I hope that whoever is going to come in will also do better, or continue from where he stopped. The most important area is continuity. That has been our problem in this country. I feel that whoever is coming should ensure that where Sonny Dare has stopped, let us start from there.
Honorable Minister, before we sign out with you, some Nigerians would love to know, since your political godfather is the president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, if you are open to doing this again, being appointed the Minister of Sports under the next administration.
Thank you very much. First, my eternal thanks goes to President Buhari, who gave me an opportunity to serve as the sports minister. Because when you look at the abundance of talents and qualification, but also I'm grateful for the tutelage I enjoyed under Asiwaju. And I tell people that my encounter with Asiwaju has brought positive development for me in terms of leadership. First as a journalist, then as a leader, then working with him as his chief of staff. I learned so many things. I was serving him, but I was like, I got a PhD. Serving Asiwaju, a PhD in politics, a PhD in leadership. And I think that, let me just say this, I am ready to serve in any capacity that will help in nation building, where we can add value to nation building. Wherever I am taken, wherever I am placed, I am ready and willing to serve this country.
Thanks for your time with us on the special Sportsville edition, and we hope you continue to give your best to develop a sports or in whatever capacity you find yourself after May 29th.
Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.
Yes, it's still a special Sportsville edition looking at sports in Nigeria in the last 4 years. Remember, you can also be a part of the conversation. Join us via all our social media platforms, Sportsville Official on Facebook, Sportsville NG on Instagram, and Sportsville Nigeria on Twitter. It's been a special Sportsville package looking at Nigerian sports in the last 4 years. We hope to do it again, same time, same platform next week. Bye-bye now.